everybody. Welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. This is episode 82 for the week of, what is it? June 21st. I'm going with it. June 21st, 2020. I'm your host, Drew. I am out of practice. Will, how's it going, buddy?
Leave my shits in there.
This is unedited.
Dude, honestly, man, I am so happy to be back. I've been doing well. The both of us have been itching to kind of just do a show.
Yeah.
And, it's good to be back, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. You know, we last recorded what I want to say about a month ago. We did a double shot episode. We originally planned on doing one episode, and then I talked about Doom for an hour and a half. So we split that off into its own episode. And on top of it all, we had recorded this great interview with Patrick and James from Retrospectives Podcast, actually a couple weeks prior to that. And we just wanted to split things up and kind of give some, flow to it because we were coming off an interview with Mike Tubiak. And there's been a lot of interviews and not a lot of stuff directly from us lately. You know, we've had these great conversations with people. But you and I, man, I kind of miss my bro time. I'm not going to lie.
Likewise, man. Likewise. Preach.
So it's good to be here. It's good to be recording with you. And I'm really excited to be talking about video games, man.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, it's good to be back. I couldn't even remember how to hook up the mic before the show. I was like, all right, mic cord, Scarlet Solo. Had to figure it all out. It really has been that long. But yeah, man, let's do this.
Yeah. So, folks, thank you for hitting that download button. Share our podcast with everybody you know. We would love you forever for it. Check us out on the web at WDGRPodcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGRPodcast. Will, if somebody would like to follow you, how can they do so?
Sure. Will_Gear.
And you can follow me at Scion Storm. And, let's hit the mailbag first. What do you say, bud?
Let's do it.
All right. So we had some reaction to our Doom Eternal review, which was episode 79?
I believe so.
That sounds about right? So, first of all, let's start with Patrick. He says, by the way, that's Kami. YMMOC. I'm just going to rag on him because he changed his name. And
oh, he did, didn't he?
Yeah. He changed his name, so now I'm going to rag on him out of spite. I read the Doom review and listened to the pod. And while I agreed with pretty much everything you said, I still feel like there's a missing piece of the puzzle in explaining why Doom Eternal is so frustrating. The best I can come up with is that I felt like I had little to no control over the exact nature of my experience. Enemies' weak spots are meant to be targeted with specific weapons. No weapon has enough ammo to last longer than about 15 seconds. You need to get glory kills for your HP, or you die. You need to flame belch enemies for armor, or you die. The enemies are relentless, not a problem in itself, except you're forced into a constant circular retreat until you duck in close to chainsaw or glory kill. You can't quite wade in the thick of it like something like Devil May Cry, because the first-person view restricts your awareness. You don't have anywhere near the number of invincibility frames. Ostensibly, the game gives you choices, with gun mods and different upgrade paths and so on, but the game is set up in such a way that you're forced back into that same closed combat loop, and it's one that's not quite as fun as the 50th time you've done that dance. Of course, like you suggested, maybe it is purely a matter of getting good, but I don't think so. It feels different somehow. These are all excellent points, Patrick, and I want to kind of comment on the gun mods and the choices, because while you do have all these different choices initially, the game gives you so many upgrade points that by the time you're in the last couple levels, it doesn't matter. You've already upgraded all of your guns, all of your everything, and you're maxed out, and still with all that power, the game is still a frustrating mess. So yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had more to comment. I mean, obviously I haven't played the game, but, I did listen to your review, obviously. Yeah, and, I spent time, meditating on it. Yeah, poor me. I got my ear chewed off that night. But yeah, no, it's it just seems complex and not necessarily in the right ways. And, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Again, it's just too difficult for me to say much else. I've only seen gameplay on YouTube here and there before the game came out. And, obviously it looks fun. But, it seems like the general consensus is that this game was frustrating. And again, not for the right reasons, because I believe there is such a good thing as good frustration.
I've gotten a lot of personal feedback from the episode from people that have listened to it, and either they're not in the Discord room or they don't follow us on Twitter or whatever. And I've had conversations with people that agreed with a lot of my assessment of the game, and that kind of makes me feel a little bit better about my frustrations with it, because if I'm feeling this strongly about it, other people are too. So it's not a me problem, it's a game problem.
And that's important. There's nothing worse than feeling like it is just you. And it's so refreshing when you can find out that it really just is not just you.
And it's easy to get in that loop because, you go on Reddit or you go on YouTube and you have people just fawning over how great the game is, and they're ignoring all the flaws and justifying all the flaws as getting good rather than addressing what the actual problems are. So to get that feedback from people both online and in person definitely made me feel a little bit more confident in what I was saying about the game.
Yeah. No,
Joe Donuts also chimes in. He says there's definitely something off about Doom Eternal. It's a game so overstuffed with upgrade pass abilities and cooldowns, yet it feels like there is very little room to do anything outside the exact combat loop they envisioned. It's exhilarating at first, but since it goes on entirely too long and just gets harder and harder, it seriously wears out its welcome. So the core of the game is exhausting, but then it makes a lot of other mistakes along the way that pile up. The story, for one, is a total disaster that makes me think they stumbled into the story beats of Doom 2016 on accident. There was something brilliant about how the first game was trying to shove deep lore at the Doomslayer, and he was just like, no, fuck you. In the new game, they missed the mark entirely, giving him tons of lame backstory, having him bow down to some warrior king guy and referring to him as Doom Guy, or calling the demons mortally challenged repeatedly. The tone of the game, top to bottom, is just off. Doom 2016 walked that line perfectly, but this one feels like some trash sci-fi novel movie like Chronicles of Riddick or Jupiter Ascending with fart sounds played over. It's bad.
You can count on Joe to never mince his words.
No, that was very poetic. Patrick as well, too. Both those guys are wordsmiths.
Yes, they are.
But, the 2016 was pretty cut and dry. Once they started getting into like the story, it's almost a joke because the Doom guy's like, yeah, fuck this story, I don't give a shit. And it kind of reminded me of like movies like Evil Dead and Army of Darkness and kind of those like tongue-in-cheek B movies. Velocipaster, for example, is another one. It's like this just ridiculously stupid story that knows exactly what it is, doesn't take itself too seriously. And 2016 does that from start to finish. Doom Eternal starts out that way, and then halfway along, it's almost like they had two different teams working on it. And somebody wrote, the same person that wrote 2016 wrote the first part of the story of Doom Eternal, and then somebody else who just didn't get the joke wrote the second half. I don't know how else to explain it, because it's just like, They start out with that tongue-in-cheek mentality, and they just flush it down the drain, and they start taking themselves way too seriously. And just when you think they're about to get back on track with the ridiculousness again, which is the best part of it, it's like when this game is utterly stupid, it's at its best. And then once it just kind of circle back to it again, and they're just like, no, we didn't mean to do that. Let's get back on track with the serious shit. Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
So I am happy to be putting the nail in the coffin. That's Doom Eternal. This has been a very cathartic experience for me, a very frustrating game. I haven't uninstalled it from my Xbox yet. I still might circle back and grab those last couple items that I missed along the way, just so I could say I 100%ed the collectibles.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm missing 2 or 3 tops. It's a really small number, so it shouldn't require too much effort. But I'm really glad that I beat it, and I've moved on, and I've played some amazing things since.
That's great to hear, man. So, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Nail in the coffin, does that really mean that you'll never revisit the game?
Doom Eternal?
Yeah.
I think it's a strong possibility.
Okay.
I'm disappointed because I never had an opportunity to check out the multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
But frankly, I didn't know anybody that bought it on the Xbox, and after feeling the way I do, I don't know that I can recommend that anybody will. why would I suggest, oh man, you got to play this game so you can play multiplayer when I was so frustrated by it in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you still have 2016 and you have all the other Dooms that you like as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not such a bad thing. Is it a little bit of a letdown? Sure. But, what can you do? This doesn't sound like something that can be fixed or patched or updated. This sounds like it's just a game design flaw, if you will, that just didn't work out for everybody.
I think that's a good way to put it. Not every game in the Doom franchise has been a hit with me. Doom 3, it was good, but I would never really call it great. I'd like to revisit it, to kind of reassess its place in the franchise. But, that game didn't really grab me the way 2016 did, or even the original, 1990s releases did.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'll tell you right now, whenever Doom 2022 comes out, I don't know. I'll probably buy it. I mean,
Doom Forever. Was there a Doom Forever?
It sounds like there should have been.
Right? Maybe I'm thinking of like Batman Forever, which was a terrible movie.
Oh.
Exactly.
Anyway, so thanks everybody for writing in. We appreciate you letting us know what you thought about Doom Eternal. If you ever have any comments on any of our episodes, reactions to things that we said, or you just want to ask us a question, swing out by our Discord room. There's a link for that in the show notes. Stop on by and say hi. We'd love to hear from you, and you can join us for a game night or talk about what you've been playing.
Indeed.
Speaking of what you've been playing, Will, what have you been playing?
Well, it's interesting. I took a small hiatus, sort of undisclosed, break. And it's just because I was playing so much of FF7 Remake that I don't think I got burnt out, but I just took a break just for the sake of doing it. And I was like, all right, well, I'm pretty sure I'm almost done with this. Let me just tool around with something else, or let me think about do I want to veer off and finally get to The Last of Us? And, that's sort of what happened is I took a break. I went back to it. I forgot how good Final Fantasy VII Remake actually is. And I completed, I think, 1 or 2 other chapters. And I know I'm close because I did go on Google and I checked to see how many chapters were left. And I believe I only have 2 more.
Oh, good.
I think I'm about 35 or 36 hours, maybe 37 hours in. And the game is roughly about 38 to 40 from what I've read on howlongtobeat.com. Love that site.
Yeah.
And still loving the game, man. I had a really good time with it. I want to say about a week ago, I think was the last time I played it. And it's still good. That was the other game I started, Dark Souls 1. So Tom and I, Jefferson James, who's in the Discord room with us, we are Dark Souls buddies. We've played all of the Souls games for the most part. I know that. Did you just laugh a little bit?
No, I cleared my throat. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I've been very congested and I ran out of allergy medication. So
fair enough. I thought you were laughing, and then I imagined me and Tom in like a sand pit playing with like those little those little excavators and shit. You remember those?
Oh God, Will and Tom in their Tonka trucks. Yeah,
and we're dressed in like Dark Souls armor and shit. I've got a weird sense of humor. It's dark in there, but so we finally fired up the first one because we've been kind of talking about revisiting the series and playing again together, doing like co-op runs, and again we've done almost every game together more than once, with the exception of Bloodborne. And it was a blast. We fired it up on a Sunday morning because Tom wakes up early, and we played on and off. I think it was 1 or 2 Sundays ago, and I've actually never played Dark Souls 1 remastered. I bought it on release, and as usual, I played about 5 minutes of it. I'm like, oh yeah, this looks good. Off, and horrible, but it's the truth. But yeah, it looks really good. They cleaned that game up very well, and it felt good to be back. That world is so special for me and Patrick and Tom and many other folks. And we had a good time playing it. We're trying to keep it on a Sunday schedule, Sunday mornings from like 7 to 10 or 11, depending on what he's got going on for the day. And outside of that, yes, I had finally started The Last of Us, and I am thoroughly enjoying it. We're going to be speaking about that shortly in a much more of a deeper dive.
Yep.
And yeah, it's been treating me well, man. It's terrifying. It's an absolutely terrifying game. I had no idea that it was that scary.
Yeah.
It's basically like a Silent Hill game, but just boosted with so much more frightening sequences. And I want to talk about it so badly, but I can't yet. But yeah, I am almost done. I was trying to beat it in a very ambitious way on a tight time schedule, and unfortunately it did not work, just because of sheer, I don't know, basically too much ambition and not enough time.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like a 15-hour game, again, according to how long to beat, but I'd argue that it could be slightly longer. It depends on, your pacing and what you're doing and how well you're surviving. I think, because there's some pretty challenging moments where I've died a couple times. And even though that's not a lot, sometimes it kind of takes a while to kind of go back through a sequence again.
What difficulty are you playing in?
Normal, which is generally what I do for most games. I always like to play standard normal. I've never really been one of those people that will put it to easy or hard. I did that like once, I think, with Metal Gear Rising. And that's just because I played that game so much, I got really good. Yeah. But with this, since I'm not too familiar with it, and I don't do a ton of survival horror games, I felt like normal was going to be the right choice for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to play the game. I played it after Doom Eternal. Not the first time. I had a copy on the PS3 that my friends Mary and Andrew gave me, and I started it up, and I got maybe a third of the way in, not even a third of the way. I don't know, a couple hours in, and I thought it was much further along than it actually was, but something happened, and I got sidetracked, and I never circled back to it, and then. I ended up acquiring a copy for the PS4, and I was like, all right, I have to play this game because I really want to be part of the conversation with The Last of Us 2 when that comes out. And there's so many people that are so fond of the first game that I need to experience it and I need to understand why. So after I finished Doom Eternal, I kind of dabbled in a couple games, and then I'm like, all right, time to play Last of Us. And I did it on the PS4, and I ended up going to the same spot that I had done previously, and it was far, far earlier in the game than I had ever realized. I'm like, wow, I really did a shitty job of playing this at all. But
yep, same.
I'm pleased to report that I did beat the game, and I'm looking forward to having a full review with you. But it was excellent. The too long didn't read part of it is great game, play it for the story. I think that's really what it boils down to, but you and I are going to do a deep dive as soon as you're done with it, and it was just absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, I really can't wait. Like I stressed before, it's I'm really itching to kind of do that show, and it won't be too far from now, and it also won't be too far for me to beat the game. I think I only have about I don't know, maybe like 4 hours left, something like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but I'm happy with my progress. I definitely tried my best, and I'm looking forward to playing hopefully some more tonight after the show. So
yeah, I think we're on track to record that review episode for next week. So keep an eye out for that, folks. It's going to be worth it.
Yes.
Very much looking forward to chatting about this with you.
About time, man. This game came out on PS3 in 2013. Isn't that nuts?
I know. Here we are, 7 years later.
Yeah.
Late to the party.
Boy. Yeah.
Let's see here. What else have I been playing? Is that all you've been playing so far? Nothing else?
That's it. So basically, it's just a combo of those 3 games, and obviously, I think that's enough in my on my plate at the moment. As much as I'd love to get to The Last Guardian and Red Dead Redemption 2, basically just other games that are always pulling at my ears. They'll just have to wait for right now.
Yeah. So let's see here. I played Last of Us. I mean, I've kind of just been playing games in between waiting for other games up to, like, basically after Doom Eternal. My next game that I was looking forward to was Command & Conquer Remastered.
Mm-hmm.
So I started playing this game called Dungeon of the Endless.
Okay.
And I think I may have talked about it on a previous episode the last time we recorded. I'm not 100% sure. It's a top-down roguelike, kind of like cross between a dungeon crawler and a tower defense game. And they just recently came out with it on the Switch and on the PS4. It's been out on Xbox for a while, and it's actually a game that came out on the PC back in 2013. Well, it came up on my radar because of the Switch release. I'm like, oh, that looks like it'll be a lot of fun and really cool for the Switch. And then I found out it was a 7-year-old game, and they wanted $20 for it. And I'm like, nope, not doing that. not doing that. So I started digging around, and I found it on Xbox for $10. And I had just gotten a coupon from Xbox, and it was like $5 off. I'm like, all right, $5, I'm buying it there. Great, done. So I bought it on the Xbox, and it's a lot of fun, but it is a very frustrating game at times. It's definitely one of those types of games that, you know, you learn from failure, but it's so randomized with the way each stage is set up that no matter what you do and how well you do, it might not be nearly enough at the end. Like, you have randomized stages, right? Basically, you're in an escape pod. You choose your characters to start with, and each character has different perks. You know, certain things they're good at. Maybe they're better at fighting. Maybe they're better at running. But essentially, you're in an escape pod from a ship that's getting shot up, and your escape pod crashes. And you start out with, on default, you start out with 2 characters. And you're trying to take this crystal from the first floor to, I believe it's the 15th floor. At least on easy, it's the 15th floor. And as you're going along, you're collecting what they call dust, which is kind of like a currency that you use to power up rooms. Each room requires 10 dust to power it up. And then you also have this, you have food, you have production, which lets you build things, and then you have science, which lets you research new technology. And you have to manufacture these things in powered rooms while you're kind of exploring the stage, dealing with enemies, and trying to find the exit. And once you find the exit, you have to bring your crystal from the starting point of the level to the exit while you get attacked by waves of enemies at one time. And the way this kind of looks and plays out is very similar to a board game.
Okay.
It's kind of that top-down aesthetic where you could easily see all these different pieces in place of the actual characters themselves, right? Like, I could totally picture playing this around a table with some dice and just, you know, going at it. And I think that would be a lot of fun. But because everything is randomized each time you play, there's this real element of uncontrollability with this game. You know, and like, no matter how good you do things, by the time you get to like the last level, which, you know, at that point, your dust is really hard to come across. And like, you know, there's no direct path. Like, everything is kind of squared. So like, you might come into one level where there's only one starting point, you know, from that first room. And then the next level, you might have a starting point on all 4 sides. And you don't know which direction the exit's in, so you're just exploring. And what happens is, as you're going through and exploring, you're opening up all these different rooms that can generate monsters, and it can fuck you over. So it's a challenging game. I think it's worth checking out, especially on the PC side. It sounds like there's a lot of mods that are available for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I could recommend it for $20. I'm comfortable with the $5 that I spent. It is on Game Pass right now. So if anybody's listening to this wants to give it a shot, I definitely recommend checking it out. But it's got good music. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, it's an enjoyable game. It's something that I will go back to again. But it's a mixed bag. It definitely comes with baggage.
Okay.
Let's see here. What else? So we did Dungeon of the Endless. I started playing the Outer Worlds for a little while. That was always something that was on my list. I wanted to check it out, and as immersive as it is, I just don't like Fallout games, and this is a Fallout game.
So, I mean, I actually haven't played any of the Fallouts. Like, so when you say it's a Fallout game, you mean literally in comparison with the Fallout series?
Well, Outer Worlds is actually, the developers are the same developers that were responsible for Fallout New Vegas.
I see.
So all they did was just make a game in their own universe, but it's exactly a Fallout game. It's that first person RPG with all these different stats that you can kind of customize and upgrade, and you have your hacking and you have your shooting and all this different thing. You have all kinds of stuff you can do. But I just, every time I go into a town, I start talking to somebody and they just ramble on and on and on and on and on and on and on, kind of like I'm doing now. And it's I'm just not into that anymore. I never was. Like, Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, neither of them ever held my attention for more than a couple hours. And as much as this game is revered, I feel the exact same way about it.
Yeah, I mean, would you say that it's like extremely sizable, like some of those games, in terms of length and scope and the sort of open world atmosphere?
From what I'm told, no.
Okay.
It is a smaller game. So that's kind of what appealed to me in the first place. The fact that, this is a Fallout experience, but on a much more narrow path. It's not as big. It's not as open. I guess there's multiple planets you can go to, and they all have their own kind of thing. And I think it's like a 15 to 20 hour game, which for an RPG is pretty short. So I'm like, oh yeah, I can totally handle that. But I just don't want to.
Yeah. No, I can totally relate to just don't care or I just don't want to.
Yeah.
Which we've used many times before, because it really is just the case sometimes with certain games. You get older and you evolve, and games evolve, and it's not always about having the time. It's also just not really wanting to invest that time.
Well, you also have to keep in mind that when you do have time, you have to invest it wisely.
Exactly.
So that's a big part of it too. Am I going to invest my time in a game that I'm just kind of all right with, or am I going to invest it in something that I really want to play? No Man's Sky came out on Xbox for Game Pass, so I'm like, you know what? Let me reinstall this for the 14th time and see if I like it any better. I have it on the PlayStation 4. I bought it. It was one of the first games I bought on the PlayStation 4, and that's another game that's it's just not for me. No matter how many times I try, it's just not for me. It's Minecraft in space with a cool aesthetic and a great soundtrack, and I just don't want to play it.
Yeah, sometimes it's not enough.
Yeah, the soundtrack really is incredible. 65 Days of Static did it. And if you're into like post-rock and instrumental kind of stuff, they're a fantastic band. Graphics are great. The game looks phenomenal on the Xbox One X. But when I started up my game, I was really reminded very quickly of why I just don't want to play No Man's Sky. The first level, or the first time I played it, I land on a planet, and I noticed that as I'm walking around, my health is decreasing. I landed on a poisonous planet. Cool. So, when you start out in No Man's Sky, you have nothing. Like, you have to resource gather so you can build the things to make yourself just able to get off of the planet in the first place, let alone find your ship and have a gun and all this stuff. Like, it's basically Minecraft, but you're gathering parts to shoot guns or fly ships or, trade or, different things like that. So I spawned on a fucking poisonous planet. So I'm like, I don't have time for this. So I shut it off. I turned it back on, started a brand new game, and I spawned on a fucking lava planet. And my health starts depleting right away. So I uninstalled the game.
Yeah, I remember that in Discord. I was literally laughing out loud. I remember Vic was too. Like, it was definitely like laughing my fucking ass off moments.
Yeah. So I just don't have the patience for that shit.
Yeah, no, if a game's doing that, it's not for you. It just isn't.
And I keep giving the game a shot. They've done a credit to Hello Games. They've done a tremendous job of fixing all the false promises and mistakes that they had made when the game originally launched. That launch of No Man's Sky was a disaster. And I think it's important to credit Sean Murray and Hello Games for doing a complete 180 and making this a game that, if you like that style, it's worth your time. It's worth buying. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
And then Command & Conquer Remaster came out, and my God, that's fantastic.
Yeah, tell me more about this, because I know you were really looking forward to this.
So, the digital release came out on Steam. The physical copies have been held up due to coronavirus. So, we're not going to see that until, I think they said the fall, if I'm not mistaken. But everything about this game is just as I remembered it, but better. Okay. And that has some pros and cons to it as well, too. The AI is stupid. Like, you have to babysit your troops. And these are, you got to keep in mind this game came out 25 years ago. So you're working with kind of a limited skill set. These types of games hadn't really evolved that much. So, like, pathfinding for your units is kind of a problem. You'll run into situations where you'll tell certain guys to move away and they won't, or you'll tell them to shoot a certain object and they don't. You'll tell your harvesters to run over a dude and they'll go in the opposite direction. There's little quirks like that. If you can get past that, you have a very faithful restoration of the original game with enhanced graphics that look beautiful, and you can toggle between the two literally by pressing the space bar. So if you want to see what the game looks like, you're in the middle of a battle, and if you press the space bar, the graphics kind of morph immediately with no lag, nothing. Just immediately changes to the old style. You press the bar again, and immediately changes to the new style. It's seamless, and it's really cool. Unfortunately, it's also very easy to accidentally hit the space bar when you're in the middle of a game, so you kind of get like a little disoriented with that, but it's a minor complaint. I think my favorite part of the whole package is the music. They remastered the soundtrack. Frank Klepacki re-recorded some of the songs. There's a group of guys called the Tiberian Sons that he teamed up with to do a couple live shows a couple years ago, and they came into the studio and re-recorded most of the tracks for both Tiberian Dawn and Red Alert. Mm-hmm. And they just sound incredible. And the soundtrack for this game has always been one of its strengths, both for Tiberian Dawn and for Red Alert. The music in Command & Conquer is absolutely iconic. But 25 years ago, the mastering of music just wasn't quite there. And they took it to the next level. I mean, like, I want to play this game on fucking surround sound, and I got my piss-ass speakers here instead. And it is so depressing. Like, I want to buy new speakers so I can hear this, like, better.
For sure. I mean, like, if it's that good, why wouldn't you want to,
Yeah. So, Will, give me your speakers.
Never.
And
I love these things.
Those M Audios.
Oh, dude, they are so good. I mean,
give them to me.
I feel bad because I haven't used them a lot lately because I've been using my laptop a little bit more often just for like web browsing and even just like podcasts and music and stuff. But I will say on the weekends when we're like cleaning and I'm organizing or just doing shit around the house down here, I'll put music on and man, they are just glorious.
Yeah. Yeah. Those things are top notch.
Yeah. I mean, what a value too. Like I think they were like $100 and they're so small. So, when all of this is over and we can start hanging out, I'll definitely have to give you a little demo of them.
Looking forward to it, man. So
that's cool, man. I'm glad that you're enjoying, a nice little mix of games.
Well, with Command & Conquer, it's the type of game where I can kind of go back to it every now and then, play a level, and then, walk away from the computer. I don't do a lot of PC gaming. So having, like a go-to to fire up and just, kind of work on a little bit here and there, I think is great. The levels tend to be fairly short for the most part, at least in the initial parts of the game. So, you got half an hour to play or an hour to play. You can, bang out a couple levels.
Sure.
I'm going chronologically through the games, because it's 2 games. It's both Tiberian Dawn, which is the original Command & Conquer, and then Red Alert 1. And I haven't even touched Red Alert 1 yet. I've only been focusing on the first game so far. So, eventually I will get to Red Alert, but I'm just kind of taking my time and really enjoying it. And there's a ton of unlockables too. So like every time you beat a level, like you unlock like behind the scenes footage of, all the cutscenes that were recorded, for the game. And like, there's even like screen tests of the original actors, like reading their lines. And it's just really cool. Like they went the extra mile with this game. They've already patched it too. They've already made some improvements to the game.
Wow. That's quick.
I haven't even checked it out yet. But Jim Vasella is the guy who's been in charge of the remaster project. He's been super plugged in with the community. He's been, chatting with everybody, keeping everybody very informed with what's going on. And it's truly wonderful to see somebody who's a part of Electronic Arts behaving that way.
Oh, sure. I mean, we know that they have a little bit of a controversial reputation.
Yeah. This is certainly, I don't want to call it goodwill, but I mean, the community is overwhelmingly responding in a positive manner. So, and then I've been playing The Last of Us 2. And, I don't want to dive into that too much because I haven't spent a ton of time playing it, but a couple hours in, it is fantastic. It is raw. It is visceral. And they pull no punches. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that, man. I mean, obviously, when you're playing the first one like me, and you're so close to beating it, and then you go to your friends list, and there's 9 people playing part 2, like all at the same time, mind you. You're just like, you feel like the kid on the other side of the playground, and everybody else is in, going down the slide, and you're in a timeout or something. Don't
feel too bad though, because at least in my experience, I've done a pretty good job of staying closeted from spoilers with this game.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody that I talk to about the game feels the same way. So we all tiptoe around each other trying to talk about it. Like, did you already have that, the experience yet? And
yeah. And they're like, wait, well, which one? And you're like, wait, no, there's more than one?
Well,
stop.
Have you been to this city with a nondescript thing? How about this nondescript city?
Yeah, it's impossible.
It really is. So I think you're not going to hear a lot of chatter about it until people start finishing the game. And it sounds like it's a much longer game. I am terrified of spoilers, so I have not looked into how long the game is. Somebody was telling me that it's twice the length of the first game.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true or not. They are adding some elements to the game that I didn't know if I would like them at first, but I think I really enjoyed it. Like there's a bit of an open worldness to certain parts, which was really lacking in the first game.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say much more than that because obviously I don't want to ruin anything for you. But they are keeping true to themselves while expanding.
I mean, that's good to hear. One thing that I do want to say before I forget, and this is thanks to a friend and probably a couple friends of ours at this point, and my own experience, for folks that are going to listen to this episode, definitely stay away from the internet. And obviously that's the case with really a movie, a game, a TV show, whatever. We know that. But this one you want to be ultra careful of, and it really is because of what Damien said and what I discovered. You want to be careful typing stuff in, even just on Google and YouTube. If you're trying to check something out that is not a spoiler, you could read something even just in the drop-down suggested like searches. And that's something happened to me. I'm not going to say what it is, obviously, but just be careful for sure.
I mean, can you imagine Google's autofill for the searches and it just fuck something up for you?
Well, it was YouTube did that, and I was just trying to watch some gameplay from, I think it was gameplay from 2, I just wanted to just check out like non-spoiler gameplay that they debuted. I don't know. I think it was like a few weeks before the game came out. And I was just trying to, check it out real quick. And I saw something in the thing and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this right now. So I just closed everything out. And, it's just one of those things where I think the first person I spoke to with you was, I was like, Drew, what do I do, man? It's like seeing a dead body and you're just like, what do I do?
Yeah. Well, if you see a dead body, please call 911.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But it's like one of those things where you just don't know what to do to like unsee it. So stay away, be careful. It's best to just don't even look at a review, even if it says like spoiler free, because there could be somebody in the comments that said something.
Right.
There are a combination of assholes out there that want to ruin it, and then there's also people that unintentionally do it. So just be careful.
Yep. Well, I'm sorry you had that experience. Hopefully it doesn't matter.
I don't think it will. I don't think it will. I'll leave it at that.
That's good to hear. So that's it for what I've been playing. What's next, man? You had some stuff you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Some of these game shows that have replaced E3 and other shows that we're used to when it has not been COVID. I don't know, man. Like, they've been letting me down a little bit. And normally I'm overly positive and optimistic, and sometimes I go into straight denial when I know something is bad deep down. The PS5 show was good. Granted, I'm a PS fan and I'm a Sony fan and all that kind of stuff, so naturally I'm going to be a little bit more gravitated to that. But it was good. It was decent. I'm not going to say that it blew my socks off, because it definitely did not. I think a lot of folks feel the same way about some of these shows. I mean, even when E3 was happening, it's not always that you see stuff that you're hoping to see, and that can be a little bit disappointing. But decent. There's a few games that I was interested in. I barely even remember the names of them. Some of the games look like they'll never come out. I think at the same time, I am still most excited for the Demon's Souls remake. That was an interesting one, and I'm not going to do a deep dive on this because I could go on for a while, but I will say that I was really excited when I saw it happen live, and I was like, oh my God, it's finally happening. I was under the impression that it was going to be a remaster, but it is a full remake. And once I learned that, I was like, all right, but I started getting a little bit nervous. And I did some research as the days went on, because, of course, articles were flooding the internet days later. And it has been confirmed that not only it's a remake, but it really is being built from the ground up by Bluepoint, which I have full trust in, because I've played a lot of their games, and their remasters and remakes are very good.
What else have they done?
So the thing with Bluepoint, and maybe I have to do more research, and I'm sure people are going to help me after listening to this, but they did the Metal Gear Solid HD collection, and those were just remasters, and they did a real bang-up job with those. They also did the Shadow of the Colossus. Now, this is where I don't even know when to say remaster or remake, because I'm hearing both for that one. I'm under the impression that it's just a remaster, but apparently it's a remake with that. They also did... I forget what else now. Crap. Yeah, I forget what else. They've done a handful. I think they've done about like 8 games total. So it's not been that many, but they are good at what they do. And I do trust them to take care of this. But my nervousness is like the rest of the Souls community. And I should really actually say the Demon Souls community. Not that they're completely separate, but there is like a sort of sect of Demon Souls fans that are very, very, they just really adore the first game. And it is a very special game with a very special, unique atmosphere. And basically the consensus is when people started doing an analysis of this remake trailer, they started saying, wow, this does not look like it's capturing the same atmosphere that we found in the first game, which is dark, oppressive, foggy, had a certain kind of glow to it. And this remake looks like fresh and almost bright when it shouldn't be. And that seems to be the case. But, it's one trailer. Who knows when the game's even coming out, because there's no release date. So I'm just trying to stay optimistic, but I can't help but kind of resonate or relate to a lot of those other fans of Demon Souls, because it is a very special game in that series. It's what started it all. And if you haven't played it, it's hard to understand some of that, skepticism that's falling around the remake.
Have they shown like familiar looking areas in the trailers? Like, did you?
Yes.
So you've seen the remake trailer and said, "Ooh, that's XYZ."
Yes. So they've done a very faithful job, at least showing some areas and some bosses and whatnot, to make people realize, okay, not only is this absolutely Demon Souls, but it just is obviously remade. And it's more than a graphical update. It looks like they've really kind of reworked some of how the areas look and how some of the enemies look. And that's fine. But again, it's like you're kind of tampering with something that is so special to so many folks that it does naturally worry me a little bit. FF7 Remake is an absolute remake. There is a lot that's familiar, but there's a lot that's massively different.
Yeah.
So, that's a good thing.
From what I've heard with it, it's basically a matter of, yep, hey, we took the foundation, but this is not the same game at all.
Yeah, I mean, what they should do with remakes in certain ones perhaps is maybe stop calling them a remake, call them like a reimagination. And some may argue that, well, hey, like, wake up, dummy, it's a remake, define that word. And I understand that, but, a lot of these remakes are complete reimaginations, and I feel like there is a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah, it's kind of like, taking a movie and, basing it on another movie or based on a true story or something like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes that stuff is gold, and I think that FF7 Remake is gold. But coming out of that show, it was like the only game I really felt excited about. Horizon, whatever they're calling it now.
I don't remember, but I want to play that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks amazing. There was a couple sequences that may have been just cutscenes, but it looked pretty breathtaking. So I'm very, very excited for that. And again, a few other things, but there was nothing that really grabbed me. And then,
there was one game called Stray, I think it was called, where you're playing as a cat in like this neo-noir kind of world.
Yes, that looks neat. It's kind of one of those things where, you're like, oh, fuck, are you actually playing as the cat?
Yeah.
Maybe I guess you just buy yourself Fancy Feast at that point. I don't know. Horrible joke, but
oh god, it's got robots and shit,
Yeah. Days later, I think it was a few days later. It was like a week later. The Future Game Show came out. That was on a Saturday or Sunday. I think it was a Saturday. Anyway, I tuned in kind of last minute because I was outside reading or something, and I grabbed my phone and I saw somebody. I think it was on Twitch or something. Yeah, I was watching a Twitch stream on my laptop outside, and the guy was like, "Oh, there's a game show. It's called the Future Game Show, and it debuts in like 15 minutes." So I went inside and I watched it on the big screen, and man, what a letdown! I'm not sure if it was supposed to be like an indie game show, but I don't think so. It could be totally wrong, but just what I saw was just bad. And I don't know if it was just me, and I spoke about this briefly in Discord, but there was just weird games being shown that all looked like Xbox original alpha games, which was obviously not a good thing. A lot of them looked like, independent studios just making small little cutesy sort of games. And it was just very odd, considering the title is Future Game Show. I couldn't help but think, like, why are all these shows debuting games that just don't look like next-gen games? And again, I understand that there are going to be games that come out on the PS4, the PS5, the PS6, that are going to look not like AAA games, because not every game is going to look like Horizon Zero Dawn. I get that. But
right.
I don't know. I think in a somewhat of a selfish way, I was expecting to I want my fucking socks blown off, dude. I want to be blown away. We're having expensive systems coming out in a matter of months, really. And I just feel like there still hasn't really been anything that has really blown my mind, except for that one tech demo that they did for the PS5. It was like a Tomb Raider type of sequence. It was an unknown game, the one that we shared a couple weeks ago. Now that looked like a PS5 game. It looked like a next generation game, and I don't know if we've lost touch with what that's supposed to look like, or maybe if that stuff is coming out later. I know Joe mentioned that some of that stuff will be debuted potentially later this year or next. But, show me Assassin's Creed Valhalla gameplay at 4K 60. Like, that's what I'm waiting for here. Like, let's see, something like Ghost of Tsushima 4K 60 on a PS5, like, gameplay. And maybe we're not there yet, and maybe I'm just being a little bit impatient, but I'm not going to really back down from this too much, because I just feel like, we're a little bit, we ought to see something at this point that is like next-gen quality.
So, I mean, theoretically, right, it's June. 1, 2, 3, 4, we're 5 months away from November. So if these systems are coming out holiday 2020, they're coming out the first half of November. Mm-hmm. They're coming out before Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen, spec sheets. We've seen cool videos on how these systems are going to use their fancy SSDs and their fancy external drives. And I'm referring to both the Xbox and the PS5 here, right? We've seen no price confirmations. We've seen no day of release game confirmations.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen very little gameplay footage. And we've seen a bunch of just tech demos and pre-rendered things.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it.
I'm perfectly happy with the PlayStation 4. I'm perfectly happy with my Xbox One X. I have a fucking massive backlog.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to buy one of these systems on day one.
Sure.
I really do, because I love fucking games, man. I love being on the ground floor with a new system and being one of the first in the conversation to play something new, even if it takes me 6 months to play it.
Yeah.
So, give me something so that I can start budgeting towards a goal rather than scrambling at the last minute to make a decision. Because right now, I'm not even convinced I'm going to buy either of them on release,
Yeah, I'm with you. I think ultimately what we're saying here is give me a reason to buy a console. And I don't think we have that reason yet. And you know what? I suppose that's okay. But again, considering that it is end of June, we're moving into July. I understand COVID, probably, created some setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But, can you not just show something that's a little bit more enticing?
Sure.
I don't think that's really asking a lot, because I know there's going to be people that are like, well, you got to give them time and this and that, and that's asking a lot. And it's like, well, is it though? I try to relate to what Patrick and James were saying, like when we had them on the show. Like they're both guys that do not mince their words, and they kind of just tell it like it is. And I really appreciated that, and it made me think a little bit more about how I try to frame things, and because a lot of times they were like, well, is it though? Like, is it good? They're not afraid to challenge the status quo and to challenge a very popular opinion. And again, I know that people might disagree, but I'm all right with that. I just feel like at this point I want to see something. And I'm excited right now for a remake of a game that came out in 2009 that I'm worried about. And I'm excited for a PS4 game that comes out in July that may hit PS5, but Ghost of Tsushima is about the only thing, plus The Last of Us 2, that is on my radar of excitement.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Demon's Souls remake. And it's like, even my buddy Tom, he was like, yeah, I'm going to get a PS5 for Demon's Souls remake, and that's about it.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, man, I'm with you, because right now there's just not much else besides Horizon that's pulling me. I mean, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, sure. But, again, we were let down when we saw quote unquote gameplay of that.
Yeah. It's so weird, man. I feel like these systems, and I mean, even with the 360, back in the day, like these systems just hit their stride and release like the best content towards like the last year or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I almost forget that the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One have been out for 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah, it's actually quite remarkable. When I was looking up when The Last of Us Part 1 came out on PS3, I believe it was actually the same year as the PS4 launch.
I believe so.
Because it came out in 2013 for the system and the PS3 Part 1 game. And I thought back, I just kind of was thinking back to that time period. And I was like, man, that was a fucking long time ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. Like, I mean, I remember getting the system, I think it was the same year. It was like early 2014, because I think it was kind of hard to find at the time. And I'm pretty sure The Last of Us Remastered was bundled with it. I'm almost absolutely sure it was, because I got rid of that system at one point, and then I got the PS4 again, because I was an idiot for trading in the first time. And I don't even remember why I did now. And when I got it again, it was bundled with The Last of Us PS4 Remastered again. And they tend to do that. It's quite common. But yeah, man, these systems have been around for a while. And I think when you're kind of in year 2 and 3 of having the console, you forget that, well, hang on a second, like, they still haven't even, like, released the big boy stuff yet.
Right.
And this is what we're getting now. Like, we're getting FF7 Remake, Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima. Those are big boy AAA, like, end-of-life titles that definitely hit different. They look really, really good. They look like PS5 games or early PS5 games.
I will say the PlayStation 4 is going out with a bang. They are not fucking around. No,
they're not. And, I tell a lot of folks this all the time, that when I'm playing a really good looking game on my PS4, it's shocking to think about how good they would look on a PS4 Pro on 4K. Yeah. Because I'm playing on non-4K on a core PS4, and there are some games that just look damn good. And I told you recently, I think a lot of it has to do with a good quality television.
Absolutely. Does your TV have HDR?
I don't know. I don't think it does, but I do have, it's a Sony Bravia, and those things are pricey. And it's a really good display. It's actually meant for it's supposed to be like a sort of quote unquote gaming TV. But there's a setting called game or gaming on it, and it's a perfect setting, because it actually changes the, I think it's the frames per second, or it changes, I forget what the technology is now, because I haven't really been dabbling with TV tech in a while, but it changes the way that the refresh rate or something like that when you have it set to game mode. So you get very little ghosting and all that kind of stuff that normally you would only get with having a high quality monitor. Right. But yeah, the setting, it darkens things, it turns down the brightness and the contrast, all that stuff that we know is always boosted in Best Buy, turns all that shit off, and you get a really nice, like, cinema style quality to the games, and it just shows everything off really, really well. Yeah. I mean, I'm playing on, the core PS4 with HDR. My TV is a 4K TV. Mm-hmm. And the original PlayStation does support HDR. Yes. And The Last of Us 2, with that setup, looks amazing. I can only imagine what it looks like on a Pro. Yeah. And I'm not even on a I'm not, there's no frame rate issues. There's I don't even know what to say. It's stunning. It looks stunning. It looks stunning. Yeah, so, I think that it goes to show that even the core PS4 is a powerful machine. There's many games I can think of that I never saw any lag, any frame rate drops. I've had many seamless experiences with many games on PS4 core. So I think that's great. I think it's great. I think it's held up well. And as much as it would be nice to have a Pro, I mean, at this point, obviously it seems fairly pointless. But yeah. We'll see. I'm waiting for more details, until we get real confirmation that the PS5 is going to play 99% of PS4 games, then, I'm not getting rid of my PS4 anytime soon until I can confirm that. They're dropping the ball, I think, with backwards compatibility. It's never going to be 100% for so many reasons that are, beyond the control of even the developers, but Xbox
really has that nailed, and Sony just missed the boat time and time again.
They did. They absolutely did.
I can't imagine a world in which you would want to get rid of your PlayStation 4 unless you were certain you were never going to play those games again.
Yeah, and you know my feelings. You know, I currently have, you know, the PS4 and the PS3, and I'd love to just have a PS5. I mean, that is asking quite a bit, considering PS3 games might be hard to kind of, you know, port over to that, because I know nothing about how any of that stuff works in terms of backwards compatibility. So I can't be like, oh, well, they can absolutely do it. You know, it's not fair for me to say that, because I don't know if they actually can. I think where I'm going with this is I'm going to keep the PS4, but what annoys me is what I had mentioned recently. Like, the Metal Gear series is so globally popular. The fact that I literally can only play that on either PlayStation Now, which I did find out recently, if I had a PlayStation Now subscription, I'm pretty sure you can play the HD collection on there and perhaps some other ones, but at the end of the day, it's not easy. I still have to have a PS3 to play them, like, you know, properly.
Right.
And that's fine, I guess, but it is kind of annoying that something that is so globally well known, you would think that that would be just, you know, on PS4. And I'm not asking for like another remake or another remaster. Just give me the regular remaster, just port it over the PS4 so I can have one less reason to keep my PS3 around.
Right.
But, you know, there's certain things on there that I just can't really play any other way. So it is what it is. We'll see.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting 5 months, I think. Yeah,
I mean, should we move into PS5 thoughts at this point?
Yeah. I mean, you know.
Gonna wrap up with that?
It sure is white.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, dude, I mean, I'll be the first to admit it, as much as the memes were getting kind of obnoxious, it makes sense, because it really does look like a router it looks like a really high-end router that you would see in like a server room, you know, like off in a corner somewhere. And that's not such a bad thing. Personally, I like the way it looks. I don't know if I really have mixed feelings. I feel like I'd be pretty comfortable having that thing in my house. I like how there is a digital version with no disk drive, but there was a dilemma for me after getting excited about it, because I thought, well, to be fair, I do actually watch the occasional Blu-ray, and if I do have a reason to get rid of my PS3 and PS4, then I'm out of a Blu-ray player if I buy the digital version.
Isn't that going to be like a 4K Blu-ray player too, or something like that?
Yes, which it ought to be. So I'm glad that that's right there, because at some point I probably will upgrade to a 4K television and potentially 4K Blu-rays. It's hard to say. Right. My thought, I mean, that's a different tangent that I don't want to go down, but
I think it's a valid one. You know, like, that's something that I hadn't considered, you know.
The 4K player?
Yeah. And, you know, like, I don't really watch a ton of Blu-rays anymore. But, you know, I think that's a valid reason to buy, you know, the disc version of the system.
Yeah, because, you know, here's the thing. I'm a digital guy now. As most people know, I buy all of my games digitally. It's the way I prefer it now, because I just find it to be easier. But there's value in physical. We definitely know that. But when I thought about that digital version, I said to myself, okay, well, I definitely watch Blu-ray. So I caught that pretty quickly. But there's probably a lot of people that are not going to think about that. They're going to get the digital, and they're going to be like, oh, shit, I can't watch Interstellar on Blu-ray.
Yep.
Like, that's absolutely going to happen. There's no way that every single person is going to remember that, because people don't watch Blu-rays often. Some people do, but most people don't. They watch them occasionally. Right. And when that occasion comes up, there's going to be somebody that's going to be like, oh, shit, I should have thought about that. And they're going to either try and exchange it, return it, or they're just going to go out and buy like a $100 Blu-ray player. I don't even know how much they cost standalone, because I just had never had a reason to buy a standalone one.
Right. They're about $100, yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine at this point. But yeah, you know, then again, you can't even have the argument that there's 4K movies now that you can buy, because you still wouldn't be able to pop it into the goddamn drive because it's not there. So it'll sell well for the people that don't buy movies. It'll definitely sell well. And I don't buy Blu-rays anymore because there just haven't been many movies that I've been interested in buying.
But I mean, what is that new one with the Christopher Nolan movie that's coming out soon?
Oh yeah, that's a good example. Tenet. So if Tenet does well and I absolutely love it in the theater, I'm gonna buy that shit.
Right, and you're gonna buy it on Blu-ray.
And I'm gonna buy it on Blu-ray and then I won't be able to play it if I have that digital copy. So yes, there's many arguments to be had. I could keep the PS3, I could keep the PS4, sure. But I think ultimately my decision is gonna be with the disc drive. I'd rather just have it. Because, again, if there's a physical copy of some collector's edition of Sekiro Part 2 or some shit, I want to be able to pop that in the goddamn console.
Right. I mean, I think the only reason why anybody would go strictly digital over the disc version is if, like, the amount of storage space is vastly greater.
Yes.
Like if they're giving you 1 terabyte on the disc version and 2 or 3 terabytes on the discless. But even then, like, again, this kind of boils down to, what they're sharing with us. But if you can add storage to the PlayStation on your own, like you can with the PS3 and the PS4, it may be worth it to, go with the disc version anyway, because, storage is cheap.
Yep.
But then they have their hybrid thing, and it's like there's so many questions,
Yeah. I think that's kind of ultimately where we're at. There's more questions that have been unanswered.
Yeah.
And we don't have price points, and, there could be a big gap in between price points between the two. I doubt it, but there could be. We really just don't know.
If I had a guess, I'd say, $70.
Oh, that low?
No more than 100.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I suppose you're right. But, imagine if they did pull that wild card and they put like a massive hard drive in the digital and they charged like 150 more for it or something.
I think the disc version would be more.
Oh, but just because of the hardware.
Yeah. Sure. I think you're unless there's a vastly different hard drive, then in which case, who knows? Because you got to weigh in the pros and cons of having the disc in there, the disc drive, how much that costs, what are you offsetting with it,
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, like going back to the physicality of this thing, in fairness, like what did you really expect? Another version of the Pro that just looks a little bit sleeker? Because I think there's a wide audience that would have appreciated just something a little bit more simplistic. But and I thought about that myself. I was like, man, I kind of missed like the whole sexy, sleek black thing that they had going on for a while. But who's to say that they won't make this in black, number one?
Oh, they will.
And number two, it is kind of nice to see something a little bit different for once, because I don't think we've really seen a console that looks really striking for quite some time. And does it really matter? No, because I mean, over the past, 5-10 years, they've been starting to look like just PCs in a box, essentially, with a couple cool lights.
Well, I mean, the Xbox Series X is a prime example of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose it is. It's not exactly the most thrilling of systems, but it is kind of cool that it looks like, basically looks like a speaker, really. Like
it does, yeah.
I think we can move the fridge jokes aside at this point. But, I like the looks of the PS5. It's looking pretty cool. The controller I'm definitely excited about. I think a lot of people are excited for that for a number of reasons. You got the haptic feedback, and you've got the microphone that apparently is built into the controller. Who knows how that's going to work, but that's kind of interesting. They're going to implement the speaker more, hopefully. And just looks a little bit bigger too, because I know a lot of people have complained about the DualShock over the years, about it being a little bit small, and the thumbsticks are a common complaint with them being, horizontal from each other.
Did they change the thumbsticks on the new one?
No, I think they're still in the same spot. Yeah. But a lot of people seem a little less concerned with that because the controller itself is a little bit beefier.
Gotcha.
Which is helpful, because I did like the 360 controller. That is an excellent controller in its own right. So it's nice to see a little bit of a change there from the traditional DualShock. And the lineup seemed cool. You got the nice little matching headset, camera, and remote. The remote actually might be worth getting. Small. You can see there's a lot of minimalism that's being used with this kind of stuff now. And that's all I got, man. I'm excited for it. I want to see more games. That kind of ties in with how I felt about the game shows. So I guess at this point I'm just kind of hunkering down, enjoying what I have right now, and just hoping for a little bit more content.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I enjoyed the memes. I got a good laugh out of those. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
The console certainly is striking. I'm not opposed to the look of it, but I think I like it. If it were not a PS5, like if that were some other contraption in my living room, I think I'd be more on board with it. Mm-hmm. My concern isn't so much the system as it is the controller. Those controllers, when they're white, they show every bit of dirt and grime and dust and, all that controller cheese or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's like hand crud.
Hand crud, It's going to show up in there. And, anybody that had a 360 is very familiar with that.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody that had a Wii is very familiar with that. White consoles are good looking until they're not, and it doesn't take long for them to start showing their age. Black hides dirt and just fading much better,
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
even if you're dusting it every day and bleaching it every day and taking good care of it, just over time that white is going to turn colors.
Yeah, no, it will. I actually had a spring white Xbox 360 controller. I actually still have an unboxing and a small review on my YouTube.
Oh, nice.
With no tattoos on my arms, and my arms just look like so feeble and and so white and pale as I'm reviewing this thing. But yeah, besides the point, the controller itself was stark white, and it was really cool. But yes, I had a lot of hand crud buildup, and it doesn't matter how much you wash your hands. It just happens with hand sweat, movement, and just general skin contact. And I used to take an old, this is actually a very good little tool that you can use here for cleaning controllers. Take an old toothbrush, make sure it's dry, and they work perfectly to get out all that stuff out of the crevices of the controller. Like, I'm not talking about in between the buttons. I'm talking about like where the controller is, like the seams. On the sides, like all the way around. That's where a lot of that stuff will build up. You take that toothbrush, gets it right out of there.
If you dunk that same toothbrush in some 90% isopropyl alcohol and scrub the shit out of it, it'll work wonders as well too. You want to use the 90% because it has less water content in it. It will evaporate quicker.
Yes, 100% agree. Vinegar is good too, white vinegar, but you want to dilute that heavily because otherwise you will have a controller that stinks. Like, it'll stink like pickles, dude. It's like you just dropped it in a jar of Vlasic, and then you pulled it out, and you're like, all right, I'm ready to game.
Nobody wants pickle controllers.
Yeah. So yeah, man. I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic about a lot of these things, and we'll see what happens.
Sounds good. What do you say we wrap it up, man?
Let's wrap it.
All right, so once again, thanks for listening. Subscribe to the show if you haven't already done so. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGRPodcast. We're posting stuff almost every day. You can follow us on the web at WDGRPodcast.com, WDGRPodcast.com, where you can see all kinds of cool stuff, including Music Monday, game reviews, and links to other shows. And don't forget, swing on by our Discord room. There's a link for that in the show notes. Come on by, say hello. We'd love to hear from you, the listener. Will, if somebody wants to say hi to you on social media, how can they do so?
Will_gear.
And you can shout me at Scion Storm. And thanks, everybody. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen. We hope you enjoy the show. And stick around for next week's episode, The Last of Us review. By saying it now, Will, you have to beat the game.
Oh, dude, I just had such a devilish grin. And I even put my head down slightly and kind of like peeped over my glasses the way a teacher would.
Now there's accountability.
Yes. Yeah, no, I can't wait. But yes, thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. It's been good. And we'll see you guys soon.
Later, everybody.
See ya.